2020 has been described as the year of the pandemic that confounded medical experts around the world. Over 81 million citizens of the world have tested positive since the pandemic struck, with 1.7 million of them succumbing to this same virus. Here in Kenya, more than 96,000 have nursed the virus, with over 1,600 succumbing to the virus. One of those that tested positive is Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho, who narrated his COVID-19 experience to Sam Gituku. Sam began by asking the PS what drove him to seek a COVID-19 test.
Yes, sometimes in November, early November, and by virtue of the work we do, interactions we have, the contacts we deal with, I had always lived with that reality in mind, that I am too exposed. Therefore, when I listened to my body and there was something that felt uncomfortable, I quickly dashed for testing.
What was that?
I felt some irritation in my upper mouth. I decided it's time to go and test. And I remember that day when I decided to test in the morning and wait for the results. I had a lot of public functions in Kiambu, and I told the people, since there are already functions that are waiting for me, I was opening some police stations, going to open some of our national administrators' offices. I told them, you tell me about the results as we proceed. But having that in the background, I decided to be extra careful, and therefore could...
What day of the week was it?
It was on a Wednesday.
Do you remember the specific date?
Yes, 4th.
4th of November.
4th of November. I can't forget such a date.
Right, and so you still go to Kiambu?
We went to Kiambu because people were eating, and I hadn't got my results other than suspicion. Obviously, because of that feeling, I armed myself properly with proper masks, became very cautious about my interaction with the people, because at the back of my mind, I knew this could be positive. I finished the day, did our meetings. By evening, started feeling a bit of hot and cold, what we call chills. And I was supposed to have some late lunch. But because now the chills had come, my mind had been convinced now this thing is positive. So I decided, let me not mix further. So I skipped the lunch. And by the time I got home, the results had come out. Positive, high viral load. In that jargon means, first of all, you are very infectious. And it's a matter of time before the opportunistic infections start attacking you. And therefore, I chose to go straight to hospital, where I had to have the temperatures and all that, because I had shot to over 38 degrees. Have that contained, and the coughing and the obvious infection that was apparent going down my chest to be taken care of. So I went for, of course, heavy antibiotics and paracetamols to contain the fever and also to contain the infection that was coming, which was done for 5 days. And then I remained fighting COVID because the infections had been dealt with. And I remained fighting it in the hospital for 15 days.
And so at this time, obviously, you have to inform those that are closest to you, especially your family. How did they receive this news, and what did you do?
I had a lot of contacts, and what I did is went through my mind and processed who are these people who may have been very close to me who need to be tested. And therefore, I gave all the contacts for contact tracing, and I informed them. Anyone I had come into contact with, I made a personal call and told them, I've tested positive, and it is important for you to test. Some of them, of course, would test, others wouldn't.
Let me take you back to the point that the results have come and they're showing that you have a high number or amount of the virus in your body. What was going on through your mind?
We lie to ourselves that we are very strong and we don't fear death. But when you have a life-threatening situation, even the strongest person, such will always cross your mind. You'll always think, which direction will this thing take? Because being in a position that I am in, where we are taking data, statistics, analyzing at the National Multi-Agency Command Center, I know that this thing kills. We have statistics, and therefore I have it. I could be yet another statistic. So you don't take some of these things for granted. So it would still cross my mind, but I also know that fighting any illness starts from the mind. So if my mind gives up, then the body responds by giving up, and therefore you tell your mind, I must remain strong.
Many deaths were being reported at that time. Many severe cases were being reported going into the ICU. So even as you work, you process this through your mind. Are there any adjustments that you are thinking of implementing in case whatever the outcome becomes?
I live this life knowing that you are only sure of the day in the evening, that I lived this day. You're not sure of tomorrow. You're not sure of the next minute. And you must, COVID or not COVID, you must always prepare for your exit. And therefore, things like what would happen when I'm dead, or what will happen to my children, what will happen to my wife, what will happen to my friends, you make sure that even you, after this interview, start processing that thought, because it's an eventuality that will come. But here you are, you obviously know there's a reality like that, but do you want it today? The answer is no, and therefore you keep talking to people. Luckily, it never got to those levels that would start destroying the lungs, started destroying, because I tested early, and it is good to underline testing early, because all the opportunistic infections are tackled at that point.
And let me take you back to, you've taken the antibiotics and other drugs for 5 days, and now they're over, but I don't know how long you're in hospital. What else were you doing at that time?
15 days. You're in a room that is about, at most, 4 meters by 4 meters. With a bed, the machines on the side to take your pressures, oxygen, and the essentials. And there's a small balcony where you can get some sunshine. And in that room, so what do you do after the antibiotics? Nothing. You are in isolation. You continue taking fruits, you continue taking multivitamins, all these immune boosters. And exercise, you know, you can't believe in that room of less than 4 meters by 4 meters, I could walk 5 kilometers in a day. You know.
4 kilometers, how so? 5,
back and forth. You walk to the end, this end, 5 kilometers in a day. You could skip 1,000. I had a skipping rope with a counter 1,000 times in a day. You do sit-ups, just to remain sane. Then, of course, I had a very nice friend called Sundoku, you know, that thing of numbers, and a lot of reading. Right. It's a moment of reflection so that the days move. And I did like that for 15 days.
How long would it take you to walk 5 kilometers in your small room?
The drill was starting at around 3:30. Then you walk up to around 6.
2.5 hours?
Yeah, walking.
Walking?
In the room.
In normal occasion, do you do those exercises?
Yes, I do. Almost similar kilometers in a day.
How was your schedule? Because yes, from 3:30 to about 6, you're doing your skipping and running. But how did your day start? What what medications did you have to take after the 5 days on antibiotics?
Before November, I had worked for 29 years without what you call leave. Maybe I thought it's a pressure by nature to force me to leave. So one is a good moment for me to rest. So I would be easy in the time that I wake up. So I would only wake up when the doctors would come to take the essentials and bring breakfast. That would be around 8. After that, I would take my time, taking my fruits, my breakfast, easy. 1 hour of nice eating of the fruits. There is no medicine, by the way, it's just vitamin C, zinc, omega-3, and fruits, and water, lots of water. Then I would, of course, ask to be made the usual concoctions that we do, garlic and all those. That's what would form my part of my meals, lunch, breakfast, and dinner. Then I would engage into some reading, catching up with a lot of issues, personal, that have lagged behind because of the nature of work we do here. And generally, I was finding myself at lunchtime. I had my laptop there, so I would do most of the things, including the office things that I had to do in person. You know, there are those things as an accounting officer that I must do in person as long as I'm around. For example, nobody would sign a payroll. It must be in person. Nobody would sign exchequer request. It must be in person. So such things I continued attending to.
So you received documents or you signed online?
I would... The documents that needed to be signed would be brought. But most of the things, because there was an acting person, would deal with them on phone. The ones that would need approval, they would send to me online, other than the documents that must be signed physical. And life went on like that. So the office literally didn't stop running.
Okay.
There were people who were acting also for the routine issues. They continued happening without involving me.
So if you had to sign documents that are being brought to you, what precautions did you take to ensure that they are not agents of transmission forthwith?
I would put on my gloves. I would sanitize them, sanitize everything that I'm touching, sanitize my phone, sanitize my pen, spray on the papers that I'm signing before and after.
So yours took 15 days. When did you take your first test after infection?
Because I was there in hospital, keep testing. Tested the first 7 days. It became significant, reduced from high to significant. In the next 8 days, tested again, had reduced from significant to low, viral load, and at that point I asked that I go self-isolate at home. Then after 7 days, tested again. It became inconclusive, non-infectious, and waited another 7 days, tested, and became negative.
So it's like about 29 days.
I spent almost 1 month before I tested negative. My decision to go public and say that I have been COVID positive, we call ourselves COVID alumni, is as a result of a very unfortunate incident that happened to a family who are our friends. They lost their father because of COVID, and people shunned to even visit their home because they are labeled as COVID.
Stigmatization.
Stigma. And I decided this thing, it is time we started talking about it. So I'm there, given a chance, of course, to speak. And I tell them, of course, ask the family whether they could allow me to say that their parent had died of COVID, and they were gracious enough to accept. So I stood there and said, obviously, you people, nobody wants to even come near the coffin are fearing this because it's COVID. And I said, to start with, if you fear COVID so much, fear me also, because I've just come from it. And here I am alive. And I am telling you, in this place, count 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one has. And if you have any doubt, we can call people to test you there. Because we are fearing a problem that we have. Then we have to ask ourselves, is it sinful to have COVID? Is it anything wrong you have done to have COVID? You know, I know there are those diseases that we try to associate with bad behavior. But what is this that you have done to deserve COVID? Nothing.